What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Today's a pretty exciting episode because we have got sitting U.S. Congressman Jimmy Gomez of California's 34th joining us here in a little bit. Of course, because Congress people are busy, he only has about a half hour to give to us, so we were going to set up the stage a little bit here before he joins. Talking about what we're going to be talking about, which is housing, making housing affordable. He's got a plan, a bill that he is introducing here shortly that he's excited to talk about, and we just want to talk about why that's important before he gets on here to make sure that we maximize his time with us. So, this is not the first time we've talked about housing, Taylor.
No, we've talked about housing, well, pretty much. It's not quite as much of a topic as like healthcare for us, but we've done episodes on housing. We did an entire episode on housing at the end of 2023 when we first started the podcast. So it's a topic. It's
amazing.
Obviously,
we talked about it, and the problem still has not been solved.
It's weird, you know. It's almost like it's almost like the president or Congress. You know, everybody hasn't exactly picked up on a podcast, and they're not just like doing everything that we prescribe to, you know, fix the problems of everyday Americans.
I know. We solved all these problems in that podcast episode, and I'm really disappointed in our leadership that we got here to this point now 2 years later, and they have not solved these problems, and that we have got to talk about this again. But at least we got an actual congressman to come on and talk about this with us.
Yeah, I mean, that's progress. That's progress. You know, not actual progress for, you know, people and things changing, but, you know, for us in the podcast, it's progress for us.
So one of the things that I think both of us kind of found surprising is when we were doing a little bit of research for this episode, is that the Progressive Caucus has actually taken up now about 25% of Congress. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was like 93 or 94 or 5, something like that. Congressional members, and there's like 213 Democrats in the House right now, something around that number. So nearly half of the, you know, so roughly 25, I think it's like 20% probably. So, I mean, that's a pretty big number. That's bigger than I thought it was, for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely was still under the impression that the Progressive Caucus was still a pretty small
just
minority.
AOC but... and Jasmine Crockett running around. They're doing their own thing.
Right, yeah. Like, I knew there was more members. I just didn't know there was like 90 more members. Like, that's incredible. You know, there's some hope there for 26.
And the reason we bring this up is because Jimmy Gomez, Representative Gomez, is a member of this caucus, and it's exciting. It's exciting because obviously progressive members are taking more seats in every election that we've had here recently. And it's also exciting because we're getting to that number where they've got enough leverage to push weight around when it comes to pushing the Democratic Party to consider more progressive policies or make policy changes that represent progressive values slightly more, and that's promising. It means that we are closer to the change that we want to see than I think we really realized before, and that is really, really exciting. That's why I'm really excited to talk about the bill here that Representative Gomez is introducing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on right now. You know, for our first, you know, sitting or former congressman or congresswoman on the podcast, our first Progressive Caucus member on the podcast, and like you said, it matters a little bit less in a Republican, you know, led House and Senate, and obviously White House, you know, to have even a majority of Democrats, you know, being part of the Progressive Caucus. But it still matters, you know, even if we don't have that, you know, presidential power. Certainly any bills that we do attempt to put forward in the House, especially if we can gain back the House in 26, then obviously the, you know, main DNC, they're going to have to reckon with progressive policies as at minimum giving a lot of kind of power to us, and, you know, they can't do anything without that big group. So,
well, and what's promising about stuff like this, because I think often what we complain about a lot with the Democratic Party is they just feel like if they don't think that they can easily slide legislation into into law, they just don't do it at all. And I think even legislation that may come off as somewhat performative, because like right now, obviously any progressive legislation is likely going to get killed because we don't have this session, and legislation doesn't die just because it doesn't pass the first round, right? But like putting it up there and coming into the midterms and making people vote against affordable housing initiatives, that's putting them on blast. It's like either you are for this, and it's going to make them, especially now that we're starting to see some cracks on the Republican side, and housing is one of the big things where they're like, we definitely need to be making some differentiation here, because people need places to live, and they're getting pissed off that they don't have that or they can't afford that. Uh, you know, Shocker, cardboard boxes aren't as popular as apparently Republicans thought they would be.
I
Uh,
mean, I have seen a couple YouTube videos where people say cardboard boxes and they make it like really strong into like furniture and
mhm,
stuff. So like, there could be a market for cardboard things, but houses probably isn't one of them.
yeah. So I do think that this kind of legislation is important, even if it's voted down, because then you get to see who votes against it, and that gives candidates something to campaign on or against when they come into the midterms. And I think that we really need to be operating from that. These are universal bipartisan things, right? Like affordable housing is universally an important issue. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, those pretend moderates that they still claim exist. All of them.
Right.
So I
Well,
think.
if anything, we need somebody within the Democratic Party to actually propose legislation that people want to see. I feel like that was part of the big reason why Democrats lost in 2024 was because what are you proposing? What do you stand for? People had to ask that question, and that's not a question that you should be asking a Democrat. That's a question you expect a Republican to have to answer.
Right.
Democrats should have this solid base of policies and positions and plans that are just widely known about X candidate. Like, think Elizabeth Warren. Like, that should be every Democratic candidate ever, minimum. Like,
hmm
I have a plan for that. Cool. Like, that's something you can, you know,
You can pick
people
apart
don't
the
really,
plan, but like you need to put
yeah,
a plan out there to begin
you need
with.
something. You need
Otherwise, you're just
something.
just Republicans coming out with repeal and replace, and it's like replace it with what? And they're like, we'll let you know in another 20 to 30 years.
Yeah,
So
well, we're going to repeal it, and then we're going to argue about what to replace it with, and in the meantime, you just don't get health care, so don't worry about
just
it.
die in the
Yeah,
meantime. Like, yeah, you don't need
then
healthcare really. Like,
there won't even be a need to replace it with anything at that point, because there won't be any people that that can afford healthcare. you know, it's all
no.
part of the
So
master
I
plan.
think I think just to put into perspective though, when we did this 2 years ago, housing was 6.5 times the median income. So the median home
Hmm.
cost was 6.5 times the median annual income, which is over double what it was in 1972. It was 3 times in 1972, which is just it's astronomical to think that that's not how inflation. Your median income and median house price should rise together, right? Like we expect things to go up with inflation, but um they shouldn't be outrising the income levels we have.
Yeah, I was
And
just looking up the most recent numbers, and there's
mm,
some debate about what the ratio, like they calculate the particular numbers. Some people say
hmm
it's like 4 to 5 times the national ratio is currently, but some apparently it says some others report it as high as 7 times uh, housing cost per median, income. So I don't think it's gotten any better since
no,
2023,
it's
certainly, and I
definitely
think
not
seven
getting
times is
better.
probably
hmm
probably accurate.
No. And at the time, obviously, there's a lot of things that go into what makes housing so expensive, but some of those things are, again, back in 2023 when we did this, 1.2% of all single family homes nationwide were owned by corporations. And depending on where you are, that number goes way up: 5% in Georgia, 4% in Florida and Arizona, 3% in North Carolina and Tennessee, 2% in Texas, Indiana, and South Carolina. Um, they accounted for 31% of purchases in Miami, 21% for 27% in Jacksonville, 25% in Atlanta. So they're picking markets that are growing markets and increasing their share exponentially in those places and pricing people out of the ability to own, because that's the thing. We talk a lot about the fact that we've got all of these vacant houses and we can just fill them, but part of the problem is that a lot of these vacant houses are in places where nobody lives, right? That's part of the reason that they're vacant. uh, and so making sure that we have affordable housing in the places where people are living and working and people can afford to live where the economy can support them is really important. And that's where these companies are focusing on. And so obviously, fighting fighting corporate ownership is one thing, but then the types of homes that are being built is another, and that's a huge problem. And I think that I don't know. I think that we had a lot of new homes being built, but they were not starter homes. They're not single family starter homes.
For sure. I mean,
were,
even the median home cost that,
mm-hmm.
30K in 72 and 470K in 2022, like that's, those are people that have access to the housing market, that are able to purchase those
Mm-hmm.
homes. There's still the reason why there's so many renters and why rent prices are going up is because people cannot even get into the market as it currently stands. So like that median home cost number is like, it's hyperinflated than what it like reasonably should be, if people were actually able to engage with the market. So like there's millions and millions of people who are just not even able to sit at the table.
Yeah. Well, and it's frustrating too, because like obviously the United States in the past has done housing initiative programs that built single family homes. I mean, after the Great Depression and the Second World War, the government, granted, it was highly segregated and definitely favored people who look like
Yes.
us.
What was the
um,
big one in New York that was like the most famous one? Forget what it was called, like Allentown or something like that.
I don't know,
But it was I don't know,
like
a
just
bunch
the
of
redlining or
documentaries. No, like all the publicly built housing was just not able to be sold to black people at all,
oh yeah.
even if you were a veteran and
Uh,
stuff. I forget what it's called, but
I don't recall, but I mean it was something that happened nationwide. Obviously, we talked about it
mm-hmm,
happening here in Minnesota too. We
mm-hmm.
we were one of the worst offenders for it, which is a bit shameful considering our geographic location and our pride of being an inclusive and
I
diverse
mean,
state.
we had wealthy white people here, just like everywhere else,
Yep.
and apparently they were just a little bit, you could say smarter in the way that they wrote their contracts. I wouldn't call that smarter, but like they were
Right.
they were tricky, they were crafty
Mm-hmm.
in their ways to keep black people out of their neighborhoods.
Yeah, not just black people, but like what do they call some
Oh,
of the mongrels? And like I mean the
oh
wording
yeah,
was
that they pretty much, like, if you want to look at what not to call people anymore, just look at housing contracts from the 1950s, and you'll know exactly exactly what not to say.
yeah, it was all the worst terminology for them. And so but part of the problem was then with in recent times, obviously, we can't have the government subsidizing housing because that's socialism, which is communism, which is Marxism, which is just
The
bad. You need to be
devil.
giving all your money giving all your money to governments, or not the government, to corporations, because the government doesn't know what to do with it. And
Yeah, they don't know what to do with their $30 trillion
they'll screw you
budget.
over and make sure that
Yeah,
you're unhoused, as opposed to the corporations, which will screw
right,
you over and make sure you're unhoused. But that's capitalism, and that's the
right.
good way to do it.
It's moral. That's moral,
Uh,
obviously.
and and so when we talk about these kinds of things, and the argument is always who's going to pay for it, which is I want to throttle every single person who ever says that ever. Considering the fact that we just gave ICE like the seventh largest military budget on the planet.
Right. Yeah. Senator or Congressman Gomez literally has that part of his bill, $42 billion, right,
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
DHS and ICE. I mean, that's insane for a problem that's largely unidentifiable. And
Yeah.
you can't even like point to statistics to say like, oh, these immigrants are causing massive crime, all violent crime,
Mm-hmm.
property damage.
I mean, we can point to
No,
statistics that they are not doing those things. Like, we can specifically report to statistics that these are not things that are happening. These
right,
are
and
these
that
are
they're
the opposite of the
paying
things that are happening.
and that they're paying into the system and receiving
Mm-hmm.
very little in
Yeah.
return.
The only thing that immigrants really, especially undocumented immigrants, really end up getting from the system is if they have children, their children get to go to
Yeah,
public
public
education
education.
services.
Yeah,
And then if they end up going to an emergency room, obviously where they can't be denied care, emergency room costs, which they usually avoid doing because they're afraid that they'll get caught and deported, which is a very real concern for them at this point.
especially nowadays. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing to back up the fact that we're shoveling all this money at it, and these fucking idiots who are always crying about how are we going to pay for making sure that people are housed never come up and say how are we going to pay for a bunch of incels who just emerged from their mom's basement to go shoot pepper balls at unarmed protesters in quiet neighborhoods.
And
How are
priests
we going
in
to
the
pay for that?
face.
Yeah, and priests, yeah. You know, I just don't understand the argument, and so like it seems like there's better allocations of resources that we could be doing here, for how we're allocating the tax money that we are spending, and one of those things could be on housing, and we could go back to an initiative where we help people with first time home buyers with down payments. One, I'm excited to talk to Gomez about. I talked to his people a little bit about this, and it's not in the bill. But what I think would be one of the best ways to manage the housing problem that we have right now is to subsidize interest rates for
Okay.
first-time home buyers and home buyers under a certain income level, right? Like, so say
Yeah.
if you make under a household income of under $100,000 a year, and or you have hold on here right now. Be joining soon. Right, cool.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, like, don't subsidize it. Just give out the loans and let the federal government take the income. Let
Right.
the federal government
Yeah,
take
no,
the
like,
income instead of giving it to a
mm-hmm.
private corporation. Like if you're gonna, give out loans, and you can't screw up processing a loan. It's not like you're
Right.
providing a service. You're just asking people to pay you
Mm-hmm.
money. You're not
Right.
doing anything as a government. So like all the people that say, "Oh, you really think the government could pull that off?" It's like, pretty sure they could probably do that, considering they already
I
do it
mean,
for
we've
student
managed to
loans.
invade almost every country on Earth at some point. I think we can handle some loan processing. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Maybe.
that's but like so that's my point is like under $100,000 a year, first time home buyer, we'll lock you in at 2 or 3% interest, 1 to 5% down payment, something like that. That's reasonable, and then on top of that, penalize corporations or people who own more than one home for interest rates, saying that all right, you're going up to 10 or 15%, because that's part of the problem is these companies and real estate investors when the economy tanks and they lower interest rates, they jump
Right.
on all of those cheap properties because they've got the finances and the backing to get on them, and then they sit on them, and it's basically free money because they're making more and either renting these properties out or just sitting on them and what they're getting in a return for their investment on the interest rates. Plus, they get to write those interest rates off. So if you make it more expensive, it makes first-time home buyers and people below a certain income level more competitive. And I really think that would be, it wouldn't cost the government anything, right? Because they would still be making money off of this, just not a lot, but the government doesn't need to be turning a profit. They just need enough to cover the defaults. And it's been shown when the government used to do this, because they've done this before. It's so frustrating. It's not even like we're reinventing the goddamn wheel.
Mm-mm.
We've
Right.
done this before. We did this in the 50s, right? And the default rate was like record lows for it, because it turns out if you help people get ahead, they're appreciative of it, and
Well, and the crux of every single issue that the Progressive Caucus and that what we talk about every single week is that if you give people the shoelaces to their boots, then they'll be able to walk farther and be able to do more because they'll have boots that actually work and they don't need to claw just for some straps.
and
It's
then yeah,
that
and then
simple.
they can start pulling themselves up by those bootstraps,
Right.
right?
Once you get your boots on, then you could pull up your pants too. I don't know. Like it's
But
yeah.
if you give them boots and straps and then let them pull up their pants, next thing they're going to be expecting the government to give them a belt, and that just makes them dependent. So you just need to give all of that money to corporations who clearly not dependent on the government at all.
Mm-mm.
That's
No.
they need those subsidies.
Yeah,
Because they know what to do better with our money than what we know to do with our money.
Yep,
That's why they need them.
They need to buy more jets and more gold-plated toilets. That's clearly better for
That
the
stimulates
economy.
the economy. Somebody's
Right.
got to gold plate that toilet, Taylor. That creates jobs.
I know. I mean, they
good
just
paying
consume
toilet
they
gold
just
plating
consume
jobs.
so much. They consume so much more than the average American that they know what to do with it because they're actually helping the economy by consuming more. Not that the lower part of the economy could use the money to also consume as much, but not as many private jets and super yachts. That's for darn sure.
I
Just
know.
think about those
I know.
jobs.
Mm-hmm. All the 9 people that are involved in keeping their private jet flying. Yeah.
Well, the manufacturing of those yachts, I mean, that's big business, man. Think about those jobs.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
really
most of them aren't manufactured here in the United States, but that's fine. We can ship those particular jobs overseas to those tax haven places. Where was it that Jeff Bezos was building that yacht? They were gonna have to, wasn't it like in the Netherlands or something? They're gonna have to like dismantle an entire bridge to get it out, and then the people like got really pissed off about it, and I don't think he could get his yacht out. You remember that?
That sounds really familiar. The Koru built a Dutch company in
Yeah, Dutch.
2022. $500 million. You had to dismantle a bridge in Rotterdam that was historic to allow the yacht. I guess they figured out a way to do the yacht moving and building without taking down the bridge. So they figured it out. I'm sure it cost Jeff, an extra like percent to not take down the bridge, and so.
Well, because people were getting like seriously pissed about it, and he was gonna have to pay obviously to take the bridge apart and put it back together. And they're like, "Well, we're gonna put it back together." And like, yeah, no, fuck that. Like, nobody should just be allowed to just come in and take down historic public infrastructure so they can get their $500 million yacht out of.
Right. I mean, there's, yeah, I can't imagine that it's cheaper to dismantle and rebuild a bridge versus just like find ways to engineer it to be reattached later on somewhere down the river. But I'm not an engineer, a civil engineer or anything like that. So what do I know?
Also, just like wild to think, like the amount of wealth one man has, where he's like, yeah, I want a $500 million yacht, like, which is just think $500 million. Like, that's more than the GDP of some small countries, right? It's like, yeah, I just want that as my weekend boat.
Well, and some people, like, my wife and I regularly dream about what would we do with like a couple million, like,
oh my god,
5, like that would absolutely change our lives completely. We could do anything and everything we've ever wanted to do. That's it's not even an unreasonable thing. It's just like only one of us working, one of us raising kid, the other one housekeeping and like doing gardening, and not even like in a trad wife sense. I can feel that coming out as I was saying that, but like my wife unapologetically wants to do all those things, and she begs me all the time to let her quit her job and just stay at home and garden all day and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. We wanted this house, so we're house poor for the time being.
I
we
mean,
both gotta work.
Same here. Yeah. No, it's true. It's just like the things. It's like right now, I really wanted the extension on my shop, which I've hobbled together over the past 2 years.
Yeah, you've been
Finally,
working on that a while.
I added on because we did the wedding at the house here, so I added on to that, left the sidewalls open for the wedding, and then the earlier this summer, I finally put like the tin up on the walls, got windows in, which I got like used for free off a marketplace and shit like that, and the tin I bought used, it's all used stuff, so I could actually afford to do it. And now is like I really wanted to get the garage doors up, but not happening this year because I can't afford it. It's like, man, how nice if I just had enough money where that sort of thing, all I'd have to do is
Right, just
um
1% of Jeff Bezos, third yacht, whatever it is. I'm sure. I'm sure he has many more than three yachts, but 1% of his yacht would absolutely change most 90% of
mhm.
people's lives completely. But no, I mean, he's obviously the smartest person on the planet for having the most money, and he deserves it way more than anybody
Absolutely,
else.
absolutely. No. And
He's
and
a
then and
much,
that's
he's a,
the other thing too though is like we talk about this and like the things that we would like to do and oh we're house poor and like I'm mad that I don't have garage doors on my shop right now. And but there's people who are struggling who don't even have like what we have, and that's like the wealth disparity in this country is just absolutely insane. And we should be the bare minimum. Like where we are at should be the floor of like just a dignified life where people have some housing security and food on their table. And like we don't want for much. Obviously, there's things that we do want, but like as far as like we live in a
yeah,
warm house with food on the table, and currently have more financial security than many people, and that's
right. Yeah, I
um
mean, would it be
if he's
really
trying to get
cool
lugged. Oh, go ahead.
to like own 1967 Ford Mustang convertible and just be cool
Hmm.
to drive that around the summer and then have a different winter car and then also a car that's like can tow and or haul around a bunch of stuff and then a family like SUV or whatever, like sure, like that'd be
Hmm.
cool, but like do you a don't have enough money for that, b it's just unnecessary generally speaking. uh
It's like we're talking about how unnecessary it is to have like three cars. Meanwhile, again, we're talking about these billionaires. It's like I need another yacht, a $500 million yacht, and then I've got a
right,
smaller yacht that's the tender to that yacht, and I have my private jet and private helicopter that get me to my yacht, that takes me to my private island. It's like, yeah,
where I
we're
have a
we're
garage
definitely the
with
ones out
20
of.
with 20 Lamborghinis,
Yeah. It's like, man, it'd
Uh,
be nice to have the extra minivan.
right? Uh, in the second quarter of 2025, investors paid an average 450,000 per home. Blah, blah. The average price for large investors who own 1,000 more properties was even lower at 280,000. So large investment groups are buying, you know, 200 to $300,000 homes. Looks
Hmm.
like. And 33% of all single family homes sold in the second quarter of 25, 33% of those were purchased by investors, which is freaking
Wild.
ridiculous. A third of all the single family homes. That's crazy. So small investors, fewer than 10 properties, account for the largest share of investment holders, around 40%. And then large investors, 1,000 plus properties, own around 2%.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, how's it
Hey, you
going?
figured it out. Sorry, we didn't realize you were joining on your phone and had to download the app there.
Oh yeah, yeah, no worries, no worries. We got it worked out. I just usually use an iPad and my staff test things out on their computer, but it's fine.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This is Representative Jimmy Gomez of California's 34th. Pretty
Just so
pretty
you
dense district you represent there, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's pretty dense. I call it the Ellis Island of the 21st century just because it's home to all sorts of different populations from Mexican immigrants to Filipinos to Koreans, you name it. It
Hmm.
really does represent the mixing pot of Los Angeles.
And you represented this district since 2018, correct?
2017, I won a special election. It was the first special election after Trump got elected president, and there was 23 candidates, so it was a little wild. But it was,
Wow.
yeah. Uh, so you when it's great because when it's that many candidates, you just focus on talking to voters, and whoever has the best message wins.
And clearly that was you.
Yeah. Ah.
And you've kept the seat, so clearly you're doing something right so far.
Yeah, no, it's a district that always changes. It's a lot of I think a lot of the issues that this district talks about are the oftentimes set the stage for the rest of the country.
Hmm.
You name it, it's there. Healthcare, climate, housing, affordability, immigration, all of it. It's all rolled into one, and it's not only ethnically diverse, but it's economically diverse. There's people that live in multi-million dollar homes. There's people that are living on the streets in Skid Row.
Hmm.
So it is really a mix of everything, and you have to be able to talk to different audiences and different people in order to get their support. But and then find a through line on all the different issues. So it's a great district to represent, but it's not as clear cut as some other districts. If it's either all rural, all suburban, all urban, so it's a very different district.
Well, I mean, I think an important thing to realize though is all districts have more diversity than I think anybody really gives them credit for,
Yeah.
and a lot of times, like my representative does not represent me at all. He hides out. Pete Stauber, I'm sure you know
Uh,
him.
yeah.
Uh, he's not around much, and he's found his demographic that he can win our entire district with. We've got a very large district, and it's frustrating. I wish we had more representatives like you that were making sure that they were focusing on everybody in all of the districts that they represent. So it's nice to see that somebody A is doing that, and B, I think kind of more you're forced to do that where he's not. But it's a good lead by example there. And I
Yeah.
think that
No.
that's. Oh, go ahead.
No, no, you're absolutely right. You gotta once you win, you represent everybody. Not like in this administration where it's only the people that agree with them all the time or the people that support them. Once you win, you represent everybody, and you might not agree with them on all the issues. You might not do what they want you to do, but you're gonna at least hear them out and find areas that you can deliver for them. But it is definitely that's the way government's supposed to work, but it doesn't always. That's not always the case.
Well, and we found out something exciting when we were kind of looking into some of the stuff that you've been working on, and you remember the Progressive Caucus, correct?
Yeah, I am.
So, uh, we just figured out that the Progressive Caucus is way larger than we thought it was. About half of Democrats right now, and 25% of the House as a whole.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a pretty big caucus. It's one of the larger caucuses, and it's regionally diverse. It's ethnically diverse. It comes from all like people from all different committees, which matters because you have to have
Hmm.
representation on all the committees if you're going to have a say. So the Progressive Caucus has been around a long time, and this is a true
Hmm.
story. Is when um, I was a staffer for Hilda Solis, a member of Congress for about a year, '03 to '04. I was her representative to the Progressive Caucus. I was one of the staffers that sat in the back and listened to everybody debate the issues. And a lot of times they're on the forefront. They know things are coming and they're trying to raise the alarms. And back then, he was a little ahead of his time. This guy named Dean Baker was talking about the housing bubble and how it was going to crash and it was going to take down our economy. Well, that was in 2003, 2004. It
Mm.
ended up taking down the economy about a few years later, but
Hmm.
it was there. So the Progressive Caucus is often on the forefront of a lot of issues.
Well,
Well,
and it's
and
exciting. Oh, go.
we've been looking at the Progressive Caucus like from the beginning of our podcast. So to have somebody
Yeah.
in from Congress on the podcast is A, super cool, and then B, to be part of this group that we use to kind of guide a lot of the policies that we bring up every week. Like
Wow.
that, I don't want to say it's a dream come true, but it's a good day.
Oh,
Definitely a
that's
bucket list thing for us, so we
Yes,
definitely
yes.
appreciate you taking the time.
oh no,
Um,
happy to be on.
and on top of that, though, are you feeling pretty confident, especially with the way that the elections have been going and the amount of leverage now that the Progressive Caucus has, that we'll really be able to start pushing some solid progressive legislation after the midterms and beyond? Like, do you think that you're starting to get that kind of leverage to overcome sort of the the moderate obstacles that always seem to get in our way?
The progressive, you have to understand how the Democratic caucus works. It's a big tent caucus, the Democratic caucus, and people come from it from a variety of perspectives, right? So as I call it, I tell people it's kind of like the gangs of New York, where you have different factions within the caucus, and each one of them is pushing and pulling to get their agenda to the top. And the leader's job, if they're really good at it, is to kind of like take that fighting and kind of guide that energy into a direction that will get the 218 votes. So that's always the trick. So um and also understanding it's like you you push and a policy never makes it, right? It fails or
Hmm.
the Senate guts it, that's a problem. If you push something where it actually is you can't get the 218 votes, that's a problem. Something that doesn't change or leaves the status quo in place and doesn't change things on the ground for people, well, that's a problem, right? So it's this like fine threading of a needle, because if you don't do that, why did you get elected in the first place, right? It's like
Right.
I always say, sometimes some parts of the caucus are like they want to rearrange the deck chairs of the Titanic, and then sometimes the other groups are like, oh, okay, we have some ideas, but that's not going to solve the problem, right? Or it's never
Hmm.
going to get done. So so the goal is to get it done, but a lot of it is what I'm trying to do is how do you set up an agenda right now for when we take back the majority. So I held a summit on the national housing affordability crisis. So that was kind of like the first moving the piece in place, getting the leaders of different caucuses to come and have joined me at a press conference, have Hakeem Jeffries join. Because what you want to do is get them kind of baked in. Okay, housing has to be at top of our agenda. The next one is going to be the care economy, right? The child care, senior care, because that's crushing people too. So we're trying to set up pieces as a broader caucus so that when we take back the majority, there's some agreement. Because if not, we're going to be spending more time fighting one another, like beating our heads versus delivering something. So I do feel like the way that the elections are going, that there is a one, affordability is on the agenda, and healthcare, of course.
Yeah.
But we need to kind of put the pieces in place, lock people in, and then make it sure that we keep repeating it. Because one of the things we want to do is actually get some real shit done. That's long way to go. We have to win the House. We have to win the Senate and the presidency. But even if there's a Donald Trump presidency, and so do we have a House, there are still deals to be made if he's willing to make them, even though we're going to do everything in our power to stop him. Some people are going to try to impeach him. Like, it's going to be a mess. But during those moments, it's sometimes the best opportunities to get a deal that actually moves the ball forward on a particular issue.
Well, absolutely. And the fact that I think housing affordability and just affordability in general is an incredibly bipartisan issue right now.
Uh,
It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, progressive or moderate. We're all feeling it. It's all impacting, the 99% of average Americans who are struggling to get by every single day. And I think
uh,
that's why legislation that you are now putting forward is incredibly important. And we're really excited to have you on and talk about that because you're about to put out a bill, correct?
Yeah, it's called the Make Housing Affordable and Defend Democracy Act. It is a bill that takes the $175 billion that Trump put into his deportation uh, operation, right? His national
Mm-hmm.
police force of ICE and CBP takes all that money and redirects it to housing. That's down payment assistance for first time home buyers, credit for home builders to build starter homes that are affordable, the Rent Relief Act that will give people direct payments to if they pay more than 30% of their income towards rent. All the money to help convert old office and commercial real estate to housing. And that's because housing is the number one issue. If we did that, we would build like a million new starter homes a year for 6 years. We'd basically wipe out the housing shortage in this country. That would be huge. That's how we would actually start bending the curve of rents,
Hmm.
housing costs, all of it. So, and what we're also saying is leaving that national police force, that slush fund, is too dangerous for our democracy because they can use it to send in these national police officers, right? That's what they
Hmm.
are. They're not.
Hmm.
They're these
Secret
ICE
police,
agents. Yeah,
Gestapo. We can
yeah,
call them what they are.
exactly. Into not only every city in the country, but they can also they use them at their whim. The slush fund that they created, the 175 billion, has no real legislation behind it. It doesn't have requirements of reporting. It doesn't have this nuances that were often go into traditional funding. So it is literally a slush fund. So we have to make sure that we remove that money and tell the American people, if we're in power, we're going to take that money and redirect it to the need, to your needs, your family's needs, and make sure that you have a better chance to succeed in this country.
And one thing that I really like about how you're doing this, because we were talking about this before you got on, but one of the things every time we talk about addressing any one of these issues, like healthcare, like childcare, like housing, it's always like, but who's gonna pay for it? And that's always what it comes
Huh.
down to. And it's like, well, we are dumbass. That's what our tax dollars should be going towards. But I love that you're taking the approach of we are already spending this money on something that's completely useless. It's not good for our democracy. It's not a good use of our tax dollars, and it's already being spent. Why not take that money and redirect it towards something that helps all of us bring our housing costs down and our rent costs down? And where'd you come up with the idea to take that approach to it?
Well, one of the things that's because I'm on Ways and Means, and that's the tax committee, and that's one of the few things that they always say, "Oh, taxes. How are you guys going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it?" Mind you, the Republicans, they always say that they're against deficit spending, but they increase the
Every
deficit
time.
and the national debt by trillions of dollars, like $4 trillion, because of their one big beautiful bill. So let nobody, like, they're just bullshitters. Even the
Right.
quote unquote fiscal hawks are just straight up have turned against their own values. So
Well, and
I
this
knew
is
that.
nothing new. I mean,
Uh,
going all the way
uh,
back to Reagan, Reagan tripled the debt and deficit, while being fiscally responsible. And it's been a joke that I don't understand how we have not effectively messaged against, but it's every single Republican
uh,
president for the last century has been horrible on deficit spending.
Exactly. And so when I was looking at the money, I was like, okay, how are we going to deal with two crises? One, housing. I believe that we got to tackle the housing crisis, the affordability crisis, because if not, more and more people are going to think that the system doesn't work because it doesn't work for them, right? If they can't get
Hmm.
ahead, they can't, their kid can't have a future, which, housing is a big part of it, then that's a problem. The other problem was the slush fund that exists. So I was like thinking, how do we kill two birds with one stone? Redirect that money into the programs that are going to help Americans and not hurt Americans. And that's the simple idea. And one of the things is they always say, oh, like not only money, but then like, oh, you guys are gonna defund X, Y, and Z. And I was like, well, this is all new money, right? That has no direction to it, no authorization language. It's a slush fund. So I think that in order to tell people, no, this is what we should be using the money for, I think people were like, hell yeah, that's what we should be using the money for. Instead of going after people that are in this country that don't have papers, and some of them do have papers, as we've seen, um, and are not necessarily criminals. They should be the ones. We shouldn't be using that money for them. We should be using it to help Americans across the board. So I think people like the idea because it says this is what we would do if we had the power of the gavel.
Well, and I think on top of that, we see it's happening right now in my home state of Minnesota, in St. Paul, where ICE is coming in, and this money isn't being really used to even enforce immigration. It's being used to intimidate communities that dare not support this regime in their actions. And I think that also drives a lot of support behind it because, like, they're using our money to terrorize our
Correct.
communities, and that's not okay. No, I think that's a really excellent way to go about it. I'm really excited to see if it can gain any traction. Obviously, you're going to have some obstacles with the current
Yeah.
makeup of Congress, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we have 60 co-leads right now on the bill, so that's a big
It's huge.
accomplishment.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then we have then we have growing support on the outside. We have immigrant rights groups out there. There are housing groups that support the money going into these programs. They support these individual bills, but they don't want to go get crossed with Donald Trump necessarily, right? So that's kind of one of the reasons why some of them are hanging back. But no, this is about socializing the idea, creating the groundswell, understanding that in the end we're going to have to negotiate a package of housing bills, right? And these are all my bills that I've introduced on housing. So other members are probably going to want their bills on housing. But either way, I think that's what we need to tell the American people. We're in power. We'd use this money that he's using to terrorize our neighborhoods to actually build them up instead.
Well, and that's one thing we were talking about before you hopped on is in 2024, it felt like the national DNC sort of agenda was kind of wishy-washy, and it felt like we weren't able to present that in a well, described manner in which people could actually, just repeat what the, policy was. And, the biggest policy agenda we come up with was like sort of like a, business tax credits. That's like the big thing that everybody was talking about. And so if we're going to actually
$25,000 first time home buyer thing or whatever it was.
Well, yeah, starting a business, yeah, you get that tax credit. And I feel like if we can present some of these things that, clearly with Congress being what it is, it's going to be difficult to pass. We're showing the American people that these are things that can be done. This is, you clearly listed out, this is money that is being spent that we could spend to actually better American people, everyday Americans. And if you vote for Democrats, this is what we're going to actually try to do. And I feel like it's definitely part of the winning strategy that needs to happen in 2026.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that you got to be firm in your beliefs and your ideas. We believe that people need to be able to have a chance to succeed and get ahead. How do you do that? What does it mean? Right? And a lot of it does come down to being able to start a family, buy a house, start a small business, go to college, stuff like that. But we don't invest in it. And then when Republicans are talking about it, they said that they're going to give money to the largest corporations in the form of tax cuts, and then you're going to benefit, which we've seen
it's going to trickle all over our faces any day now. Any day. It's just going to golden shower all down us.
And that's not the fucking case, right? It's like, so that's the kind of stuff. And we need to be firm in that belief. We cannot, $175 billion. We could extend the ACA subsidies. Do the math. It's $20 million a year, right? You can extend it for 6 years, right? More. Right? So it's it is something we have to say this is what we would use the money for. And right now they're using it not to build up our families, our communities. They're using it to terrorize. And one of the things, and when most people say, oh, how is that going to benefit me, our own home? Well, two things are dragging down our gross domestic product. Two things, the cost of housing and the cost of childcare. Those two things eat up almost 60% of a family's income across the country, 60%. That's pre-tax. So they have very little left to start a small business, to invest, to go shopping, especially with the cost rising. So we cannot unleash economic boom if we take care of some of these items that are dragging down the American consumer. That's if we also take care of some of these tariffs that Trump is imposing and raising costs unnecessarily.
Well, and we were talking about...
Go ahead. You go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, we were just talking about this earlier, too, this isn't a new concept. The United States government has done this before, where it invested heavily in housing back in the 50s and 60s, right after the Depression and the Second World War. And granted, it was highly segregated. There was lots of problems with that system, but it definitely that was one of the big things that led to the economic booms and the booming middle class of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, right? So it's not like this is some wild, radical, new idea. This is something that can be done and we have done.
No, you're absolutely right. That's exactly, I would tell people I want to create a housing boom that rivals the 1950s after the troops were coming home from the World War. And that's what we should be doing, right? That generation did extremely well because we invested in housing, we invested in education, we invested in small businesses. if we did that on the scale that we're seeing now, if we can do it on the scale that I'm talking about, it would transform this next generation, and the feeling that, and it's a true feeling because you're seeing poll now after poll showing that people feel like the next generation is actually going to do worse than the last. It's actually showing up in polls. Um, that feeling, we can address it. You don't address it by just saying, "Hey, America is great." You address it by dealing with the underlying concerns that people have, those frustrations. And I get it. I didn't own a house until I was 36, 30. And I was broke at 30. I couldn't even like pull $20 out of my bank account. So I get people's frustration, and part of it is housing, but it's education. It's also when it comes to healthcare, and this administration is just unraveling it. But you're right. We've done it before. We can do it again. It's not radical.
I know you got to get going here soon too, but there was one thing that was missing from your bill that we've been talking about, and since I've got the ear of a congressman, I want to run it by you and see what you would think about this kind of legislation too. Is I think interest rates are one of the things that has gone and helped the wealthy and the corporations buy up so
Yeah,
much of our housing and
yeah,
hurt first-time home buyers and people underneath a certain income level. And I think that a real straightforward way of addressing some of those issues would be if the government offered direct loans or subsidized loans that gave, a 2-3% interest rate to people who made under $100,000 a year household income or were first-time home buyers, and penalized people who owned more than two homes or anything like that with 15-20% interest rates. That would help level the playing field and make
yeah.
first time home buyers more competitive, especially when the economy crashes and the interest rates come down and people are struggling for money. That's when those real estate investment firms come in and buy up so much
Yeah.
of the property and we can't compete. So what do you think about something like that?
Well, no, so a lot of my bill is based on tax credits because I'm on the
Hmm.
tax committee.
Right.
The that you're talking about is financial services, which I'm not on,
Hmm.
but there are
Okay.
bills like that have those ideas, and that's why I said a lot of the money right now in this bill would go to the bills that I've created, so I can keep control over the jurisdiction. I don't have to like
Hmm.
go and negotiate with other members. But in order to
Makes
get their
sense.
support, we're eventually going to have to go and negotiate with that other committee, which is the Financial Service Committee, because they have Freddie and Fannie Mae, they have
Hmm.
banks, they have all those issues. So we definitely look at that because in the end, you're going to have to tackle it across the board. It's not going to be just tax policy that's going to solve it. It's going to be multiple levels. And here's uh, a good example, but you can do things within the tax code. Like most people forget, like every piece of major legislation that goes through the House, like even Trump's bill, right? One big beautiful bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Build Back Better, the infrastructure law. Half of it goes through the Ways and Means Committee. Half, like if it costs $4 trillion, 2 trillion goes through the Ways and Means Committee. So that's why like I kept it there. But one of the things we could do on the good example, the tax credit for building new starter homes that are considered affordable. Well, the affordability angle part of it is you get 15% if you build a starter home. Then you get another 15% if you sell it to a first time home buyer. So like these folks they're not gonna sell it to these other folks because they're gonna get
They want their
money.
15%. Yeah. No, that
Yeah,
makes
they're going
sense.
to want their 15%. So you have to incentivize hey, we want these sold to first time home buyers. So we're looking at it across the board. But yeah, we don't, I'm not against the idea. I don't have a bill on it, but it's definitely something that I would look at. And I know that there's other members of Congress that are probably looking at that issue as well.
And the one thing about your bill that at first we tend to think of things, Jordan and I specifically tend to think of things from the top down and what's the structural change that we have to do to actually affect these problems at the root cause. And
Yeah.
like your bill necessarily doesn't tack the structure of our economic system of housing necessarily at its roots, but it does something really specific in that it takes money away from things that are not helping people, that are actively harming communities, and then B, it go straight for some of the low hanging fruit, some of the things that already exist and are really easy to do today that don't require this massive discussion about, how should our economy work in general, and how does it
Yeah.
actually affect people, all the way down to the poorest person in the United States. So like, I actually kind of liked it. At first I was like, I don't know, is this really going to make like massive change? But, looking it over and throughout this conversation definitely convinced me that this is something that can actually absolutely affect people today, right now. And there's no reason not to do something like this.
No, I appreciate that. And one approach I often believe in, I call the policy nudges, and these are pieces of legislation that can reframe how a particular, um, I would say, a particular code is used. Good example, what I did and how people also interact with something. So I did the used DV tax credit. That was my idea and made it into the Inflation Reduction Act. So if you basically made less than $75,000, or if you get up to $4,000 off a used EV. Why was that important? Because the more people drive EVs, the more widely used they are, the more people are going to like them and understand them, and then more people are going to want to buy them. So all of a sudden, and it's harder to undo. Trump undid the whole system, right? But it's called a nudge. Is it going to be transformative? No, but it started to create a lot of change. People are like, you know what? I would never buy an EV, but now that I can get it for 11,000 bucks, I'm gonna fucking get an EV, right? So
Yeah.
all of a sudden it becomes attainable. And I did that when it came to um, birth certificates here in California, to recognize same-sex couples. I actually changed it that parents could select mother, father, parent, right? They weren't like, you didn't have to go into the wrong box. People are like, I even got a couple of Republicans to vote for it. And
Awesome.
and why was that one a big deal? Because all of a sudden nobody would be in the wrong box if they had two parents that were men, or two
Same sex,
women,
yeah.
or like, yeah, it'd be so. People were like, "Well, is that a big deal?" It's like, maybe not when you pass it, but when you start changing the value
Mm-hmm.
structure that people have or how they view things, then it's a big deal. So policy nudges can be powerful. What includes in this housing bill is a renter's tax credit. People have been talking about a renter's tax credit for years. Why should renters, because some people are generational renters, why shouldn't renters get a tax credit just like a homeowner?
Absolutely.
Like,
And see,
so
that's funny
it's,
because in Minnesota we do have a state tax credit for renting,
Mm-hmm.
and I would just always thought that was, that's just the way everybody did it. Like, you got a you
uh,
got a tax credit, but no, it's Minnesota's one of the few.
yeah, well, this
Mm-hmm.
one's different because the way it's different is usually when you have a tax credit, you have to owe taxes into order to get it. So it takes it off whatever
Hmm.
taxes you owe. This would be, you would get it
Direct payment.
monthly. So yeah, you would get it monthly. So say you were paying more than 30% of your rent, it's the difference. Say you're paying 50%. Well, the difference between 30% and 50%, you would end up getting that as a monthly payment to help offset the cost, which is different, right? It's almost like
Mm-hmm.
a universal basic income for renters. Uh,
For sure.
I think that's incredible legislation.
yeah.
Well, I don't
So
want to
that,
hold you up much. Oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
No, I just know you only had like a half hour and we're a little short getting in here, so I don't want to eat up too much of your time. So I mean, I'll keep you on as long as you want to stay. But
No,
Yeah,
look,
yeah, we can talk. We can talk.
I no, no. Well, I have a toddler too, so my wife would kill
yeah.
me if I stay on too long.
Yeah,
Since
yeah. Fair
he's
enough.
Mm-hmm.
3 and 3 months, he's
Hmm.
been up since 6:30, so we're in it. We're in it. But no,
Yeah.
listen, I everything we're doing is trying to set the agenda for next year,
Mm-hmm.
by giving people also something to, like, hey, envision. Democrats win, it's not just about stopping Trump. It's also about putting together an agenda that helps working people, that addresses their concerns. So this is housing, healthcare, childcare, reducing the cost of living, and that's in the end what we have to do. We have to stay focused, and then making sure that this unhinged, unbound administration starts to have some constraints. And
Yeah.
that's the goal. In the end, is that we can't continue down this path, or we're not going to have a path to continue.
Well, we're incredibly thankful for the work that you're doing, and I know you're really trying to pitch this bill and get as much attention on it as possible. So, people who are listening to this, how can they help support the bill? How can they help support you in the work that you're doing? Shameless self promotion, as much as you want here. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, one, of course, if they like the bill, make sure they follow me on social media, Rep Jimmy Gomez, and just promote it to friends and family. We're also in talks with other orgs to do some films. So when it comes out, we'd love for them to kind of promote that. And then we're going to be creating a packet of I would say products, so like logos and
Mm-hmm.
posters that we're going to try to get out and get people to support this bill. Because in the end, we need to make sure that people know what we're about, as well as what we're against.
Are you going to provide like scripting and stuff? You can email your representatives or call in to your
Yeah,
representative's office and stuff like that too.
yeah, definitely. One of the things we're not allowed to do as on the official side is to have people lobby their members, but on the
Sure.
unofficial side, we will be doing that for
Okay.
sure.
All
Yeah,
right.
because we
All
still
right.
we don't have all the Democrats on board, so we want all like get all the Democrats as possible,
Yeah.
and and get them to sign up because we have to. One thing we also have to say is $175 billion slush fund cannot stand. It's
That's
too
insane.
dangerous. It's too dangerous because there's
Well, it's
no.
fiscally irresponsible too. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
huge waste of taxpayer money. And when we talk about fiscal responsibility all the time, the fact that they are just throwing untied money at this secret police force to do with whatever they please is insane.
exactly. So and we also want to make sure that people are getting the Democrats all on board, asking their members, "Hey, you should get on board. This is a good bill. It's going to help address one of our main issues." So
All right,
housing, not hate.
housing not
I
hate.
love
I
it.
love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Representative Gomez, for spending a little bit of time with us, being willing to download the app so you could do this and all of that.
Of
Uh,
course. So,
we really appreciate the work that you're doing. Everybody go follow Rep Gomez. It's Rep Gomez, right? On all
yeah,
the
Rep
Go
Jimmy
follow
Gomez.
Rep Jimmy Gomez on all of the social medias. We'll put that in the description and be on the lookout for this bill. Start sharing it because this is the type of legislation that can actually start making real difference in people's lives and start making real difference in the conversation to get the legislation that is going to help all of Americans do better because we all do better when we all do better. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope we get to talk to you again soon after this bill is introduced and hopefully passed one day.
All right. Thank you guys. Talk to you
Yeah.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
bye.
All right, and thank you everybody else for tuning in once again, giving us the opportunity to have these conversations and help elevate this kind of policy. The only reason that we're here doing this and people like Representative Jimmy Gomez give us the time of day is because you guys give us the time of day. And that's never lost on us. Obviously, just listening and sharing the podcast and the content that we make is all the support we can ask for. But if you want to support us financially, you can do that through memberships on YouTube, subscriptions on Patreon, or direct payments through the link in bio stuff. It's all up there, as well as merch, offthewagon.com. You can get the Let Them Eat Toast merch and my personal merch. But otherwise, we just appreciate the hell out of you guys giving us these awesome opportunities and allowing us to share them with you. So thank you guys for
Yeah.
that, and we love you.
I know we've already mentioned it a couple times, but like sitting here today from where we started, having a sitting member of Congress on the show is incredible. And the only reason we can do it is because you guys continue to watch and share. And it's incredible for us to get to talk to somebody like this. And we really appreciate your guys' audience.
All right. Well, we will see you guys next week.
That's right. Take care.